What did medieval sweethearts exchange when iPhones and Netflix were centuries away? How did they show their love between the years 500 and 1500? Get ready for a peek into a surprising world of passion and hidden messages. Number 10. Knots and laces. In the medieval worlds, symbolism was everywhere, woven into the very fabric of daily life. And few symbols were as potent and versatile as the knot. Knots could bind, connect, and endure, making them a powerful representation of eternal love and unbreakable bonds between sweethearts. These weren't just simple knots. They were often elaborate, decorative, and deeply meaningful, appearing in various forms from intricate lacework to personal accessory. One of the most direct ways knots functioned as love tokens was through the exchange of love knots themselves. These were specific patterns, often symmetrical and intertwined, designed to visually convey the idea of two lives or two hearts inextricably linked. These patterns were not merely abstract designs. They were understood by most people in society as representations of loyalty, constancy, and shared destiny. A sweetheart might meticulously craft a small decorative knot from ribbon or thread, perhaps in a significant color like red for passion or blue for fidelity, and present it to their beloved. Such a gift was not just a pretty bauble. It was a silent promise, a visual vow of devotion. These love knots were not confined to small standalone tokens. They often appeared as decorative elements on other gifts. For instance, a beautifully embroidered purse or a finely stitched garment might feature a prominent love knot design, integrating the symbol of binding affection into a practical item. Think of the intricate embroidery found on surviving medieval textiles, where patterns of interwoven lines and loops frequently emerge. These weren't just flourishes. They were often deliberately chosen symbols, sending a clear message from the maker to the recipient. A lady might embroider such a knot onto a scarf or a sleeve for her knight, a constant visual reminder of her favor and his commitment. Beyond the purely decorative knots also held a functional significance in medieval attire. Garments were often fastened with laces known as points or aglets. If they had metal tips, the exchange of these laces could become a deeply personal act. A knight preparing for battle or a tournament might receive his lady's points, perhaps from her sleeve or bodice, to attach to his own armor or clothing. This act was laden with meaning. It was a visible sign of her favor, a tangible connection to her, and perhaps even a form of protection or good luck charm. The laces, once part of her intimate attire, now served as a physical link, binding her to him even when they were apart. This practice is hinted at in various medieval romances and chivalric tales, where the hero proudly displays a token from his lady, often something as seemingly simple as a ribbon or lace. The materials used for these knots and laces varied based on wealth and status. For the nobility, laces might be made of expensive silk, perhaps interwoven with gold or silver thread and tipped with precious metal aglets. The knots themselves could be crafted from fine ribbons, pearls, or even precious stones, arranged to form the intricate intertwined patterns. For those of more modest means, knots might be fashioned from dyed wool, linen, or simpler ribbons, but their symbolic power remained just as strong. The value was not solely in the material, but in the meaning imbued by the giver and understood by the receiver. The concept of knots as love tokens also extended to legal and social rituals, particularly betrothal and marriage. While not the primary token, the symbolism of the tying of the knot is deeply rooted in medieval custom. In some regions, during a betrothal ceremony, a couple might literally tie a knot together, or their hands might be bound with a ribbon or cloth, symbolizing their union. This physical act reinforced the symbolic power of the knot as an unbreakable bond. Furthermore, the symbolism of knots permeated medieval art and heraldry. Heraldic devices often featured specific knots, like the Stafford knot or the Bowen knot, representing lineage and loyalty. While not directly love tokens in the same way, Their pervasive presence in the visual language of the time reinforced the cultural understanding of knots as powerful symbols of connection, fidelity, and lasting commitment. A sweetheart might incorporate such a heraldic knot from their family crest into a personal token, signifying not just personal love, but a union of families and traditions. The permanence of knots, their resistance to unraveling, once properly tied, mirrored the desired permanence of love. A knot, unlike a flower that wilts, or a food item that is consumed, could endure a constant physical reminder of a promise made. This enduring quality made them ideal tokens for a love intended to last a lifetime. Whether a finely crafted silk ribbon tied into an intricate love knot, a length of personal lace exchanged between lovers, or a symbolic knot pattern embroidered onto a garment. These humble yet powerful objects played a significant role. These humble yet powerful objects played a significant role in expressing affection. They were silent yet eloquent declarations of a bond that was intended to be as strong and enduring as the knot itself. The simple knot, often overlooked in its symbolic depth, stood as a profound testament to the enduring power of medieval love. Number 9. Devotional objects and relics. While not the most obvious choice for a love token in the modern sense, small devotional objects and even what were considered relics held a unique and profound place in the expressions of affection among medieval sweethearts. In a society deeply permeated by Christian faith, sharing a spiritual bond was often as important, if not more important, than purely romantic or physical attraction. Giving a devotional item was a way to express not just personal affection, but a shared hope for eternal salvation, a desire for a love blessed by God, and a commitment to a life lived in piety together. These tokens were not about sensual allure, but about spiritual connection and a mutual journey towards divine grace. A sweetheart might present a small, beautifully carved wooden or ivory diptych, a two-paneled altarpiece that could be folded, closed, to their beloved. These diptychs often depicted saint scenes from the life of Christ to the Virgin Mary. The craftsmanship involved in such an item, sometimes miniature in scale, could be exquisite, featuring intricate details and even traces of original paint or gilding. To receive such a gift meant that the giver wished for the recipient's spiritual well-being, for their prayers to be heard, and for their shared future to be divinely sanctioned. It was a deeply personal gift, often intended for private devotion. Another common devotional object exchanged could be a small illuminated prayer book, known as a Book of Hours. These were highly personalized collections of prayers, psalms, and religious texts, often custom-made for the owner. They were incredibly valuable, not only for the parchment and the skilled scribble work, but especially for the intricate miniature paintings and decorative borders that adorned their pages. Giving a Book of Hours was an extraordinary gesture, signifying immense respect, affection, and a desire for the recipient's spiritual nourishment. It also represented a significant investment, underscoring the sincerity and depth of the giver's feelings. These books were often passed down through generations, acquiring even more sentimental value over time. Pilgrim badges were another interesting category. After undertaking a pilgrimage to a holy site, individuals would often acquire a small lead or pewter badge depicting a symbol of the shrine or saint they visited. These badges were often worn on hats or cloaks. While primarily a mark of the pilgrimage, sharing, or gifting, a pilgrim badge could signify a shared experience journey, a memory of a sacred experience, or even a hope for future. Shared pilgrimages. If a sweetheart could not accompany their beloved on a journey, receiving a badge brought back might be a tangible reminder of their thoughts and prayers while apart, and a promise of shared experiences upon return. Rosary were significant. A rosary was a string of beads used to count prayers, particularly the Our Father and Hail Mary. They could be made from a variety of materials, from simple wood or bone, for common folk to precious metals, pearls, or amber for the wealthy. Giving a rosary was an intimate gesture, providing a tool for daily spiritual practice. It was a sign of devotion, encouraging piety and prayer in the beloved, and often symbolizing a wish for their protection and spiritual guidance. Carefully chosen rosary, perhaps one blessed at a particular shrine, would be a cherished item. Even what were considered relics could play a part, though perhaps less directly. True major relics were housed in churches and venerated publicly. However, smaller, less significant items, or even contact relics, objects that had touched a major relic, or simply items believed to have come from a holy place, could sometimes be shared between individuals. These might be small fragments of cloth, blessed metals, or tiny vials of holy oil, or water known as ampullae, brought back from a pilgrimage. The value of these items lay in their perceived connection to the divine offering, protection, healing, or blessing. If a sweetheart presented such an item, it was an expression of deep care, a wish for the beloved's well-being in both this life and the next, and a desire for their relationship to be under divine favor. These devotional tokens highlight a crucial aspect of medieval love: its interwoven nature with faith. Love was not solely a worldly affair. It often sought a higher spiritual dimension. The exchange of devotional objects signified a shared spiritual path, a commitment to piety, and a profound hope for eternal union in the afterlife. It demonstrated that the giver cared not just for the beloved's earthly happiness, but for their immortal soul. These gifts were not fleeting fancies, but enduring symbols of a love that aspired to transcend the mortal realm, seeking divine blessings for both the individuals and their shared future. They underscore the understanding that true love in the medieval world was often seen as something blessed by and aspiring towards God. Number 8. Poetry and song. In an age before mass media and instant communication, poetry and song were vibrant and powerful forms of expression, serving as crucial vehicles for sweethearts to declare their affection, lament their sorrows, and celebrate their beloveds. These weren't just casual ditties. Medieval poetry and song were highly structured, often complex, and deeply rooted in a rich tradition of courtly love, chivalry, and devotion. To compose or perform a piece for a sweetheart was a deeply personal and often public act, poting wit, skill, and the depth of one's feelings. The tradition of the troubadours in southern France, and later the quêtres in northern France, as well as minions in Germany, exemplifies the formalized use of song and poetry as love tokens. These highly skilled poet-musicians, often of noble birth, themselves would compose intricate lyrical poems known as cansos, servent, or tensos, set to music. These songs were frequently dedicated to a specific lady, often a noblewoman of higher status, and were performed in courtly settings. While the love described was often idealized and sometimes unrequited, the act of composition and performance was a grand gesture of devotion. For instance, the troubadour Bernard de Ventadorn, writing in the 12th century famously, penned many songs expressing his fervent adoration for Eleanor of Aquitaine and other noble ladies. His lyrics speak of longing, beauty, and unwavering service, such as his song, Convey la Lazetta Mover, When I See the Lark Move, where he compares his unyielding love to the lark's joyful flight. These songs were not merely entertainment, they were declarations, sometimes thinly veiled, of personal affection and devotion, intended to charm and honor the beloved. The themes of courtly love were central to much of this poetry. The lover, often a knight, would express his complete subservience and devotion to his lady, who was idealized as pure, beautiful, and unattainable. This concept, known as fin amour, emphasized spiritual rather than purely physical love. Though longing and desire were certainly present, the language was often metaphorical, filled with images of natural beauty, chivalric service, and the pain of separation. Giving a sweetheart a poem or song meant offering them not just words, but a carefully crafted piece of art, often reflecting hours of thought and inspiration. These poetic creations were not always performed. They could also be written down. For literate sweethearts, exchanging handwritten poems or songs was a highly intimate act. These texts might be inscribed on parchment scrolls, within the pages of a small personal book, or even as additions to a book of hours. A lover might meticulously copy out verses for their beloved, perhaps even illuminating them with decorative initials or small illustration. The very act of writing, particularly in an era where literacy was not universal, added to the value and sincerity of the gift. The enduring nature of the written word meant that the poem could be reread and cherished long after the moment of its presentation. Consider the famous correspondence between Peter Abelard and Heloise in the 12th century. While primarily intellectual and theological, their letters also contained deeply emotional and poetic expressions of their complex love and shared sorrow. Although this was an extraordinary case, it demonstrates the power of the written word infused with poetic feeling to convey profound love and longing in a period where such direct communication was rare. Beyond the formal troubadour tradition, common people also expressed their affection through simpler songs and verses, often passed down orally. These might be folk songs exchanged at village gatherings, during festivals, or in the quiet moments between lovers. While less documented, the universal human urge to express love through rhythm and rhyme certainly existed at all levels of society. A simple ballad composed for a sweetheart, perhaps detailing a shared memory or praising their qualities, would have been a deeply cherished gift. The power of poetry and song as love tokens lay in their ability to articulate feelings that might otherwise remain unspoken. They allowed for a sustained declaration of love, a permanent record, if written, of affection, and a way to elevate the beloved to an almost mythical status. The composition required skill and dedication, and the performance or presentation was a public or private testament to the depth of emotion. These lyrical expressions, whether sung in a grand hall or whispered in a quiet moment, formed an enduring and beautiful part of medieval courtship, weaving intricate tapestries of words and music to capture the essence of love. They stand as a testament to the enduring human need to transform feelings into art, and then offer that art to the one who holds their heart. Number 7. Love letters and scrolls. In an age when personal communication was a slow and often challenging endeavor, a love letter or a beautifully inscribed scroll carried immense weight. These weren't mere casual notes. They were carefully crafted documents, often penned on expensive parchment, sealed with wax and delivered with great care. For medieval sweethearts, such a communication was a profound declaration, a tangible representation of thoughts and feelings that transcended distance and time. The act of writing and receiving a love letter was imbued with significant social and emotional meaning. Literacy rates varied considerably across the medieval period, and social strata. While the vast majority of the population was illiterate, particularly in the earlier centuries, the nobility, clergy, and burgeoning merchant class often possessed reading and writing skills. Even if a sweetheart could not write themselves, they could often commission a scribe to pen their heartfelt words. This added another layer of formality and seriousness to the communication, turning it into a professional creation, albeit one filled with intensely personal sentiments. The scribe would translate spoken desires into elegant script, often following established conventions of letter writing. The physical appearance of these letters and scrolls was often impressive. They were typically written on vellum or parchment, prepared animal skin that provided a smooth, durable surface. The script itself could be highly decorative, with flourishes and illuminated initials. Some letters might be rolled into scrolls, particularly if they were formal or exceptionally long and tied with ribbons. More common letters were folded and sealed with wax, bearing the sender's personal seal or a signet ring impression, ensuring privacy and authenticity. The very act of breaking the seal was an intimate moment revealing the hidden words within. The content of medieval love letters often drew upon the conventions of courtly love, a literary tradition that idealized the beloved and emphasized themes of devotion, service, and sometimes unrequited longing. Letters might begin with elaborate salutations, praising the beloved's beauty, virtue, and grace. They would then proceed to express the sender's deep affection, their suffering in separation, and their fervent desire for the beloved's favor. Flowery language, classical allusions, and poetic verses were common, elevating the sentiments beyond simple prose. Consider the surviving letters of Margaret Paston from the 15th century, a woman who managed the family estates in East Anglia while her husband John Paston was often away. While many of their letters deal with mundane family business and legal matters, some passages hinted deep affection and longing. Margaret might send her husband God's blessing and mine, and express how she is right sorry for his absence. While not purely love letters in a modern romantic sense, they show the intimate exchange of thoughts and feelings between a married couple where practical matters were often intertwined with expressions of personal connection. Another poignant example, though tragic, is the correspondence between Heloise and Peter Abelard in the 12th century. Their letters exchanged after their forced separation are renowned for their raw emotion, intellectual depth, and profound expressions of enduring love and shared pain. Heloise's letters in particular showcase her intellectual prowess and her unwavering love for Abelard, despite the devastating circumstances that befell them. These letters demonstrate the capacity for deeply personal and passionate communication through the written word. In the medieval period, the delivery of these letters was also significant. They could be carried by trusted servants, messengers, or even traveling merchants. The anticipation of a letter's arrival and the relief or joy upon its receipt would have been intense, especially during long periods of separation. The letter was a physical presence of the absent beloved, a tangible connection across distances. A love letter was more than just communication. It was a token of remembrance, a promise, and a piece of the sender's very heart and mind. It allowed sweethearts to share their innermost thoughts and desires, to maintain their connection when physically apart, and to create a lasting record of their affection. The very existence of such letters, surviving sometimes for centuries in archives, speaks to their enduring power and the profound importance they held for the medieval sweethearts who penned and received them. They are windows into the emotional lives of people long past, revealing that the human need to express love in written form is timeless. Number 6. Locks of hair. Few tokens in the medieval period were as intensely personal and profoundly intimate as a lock of hair. In an era where cleanliness and personal grooming differed vastly from modern standards, a strand of hair, particularly from the head, carried deep symbolic weight. It was a tangible part of the beloved, a physical connection that could be kept close, a constant reminder of their presence and affection. The exchange of hair was not a casual act. It was a deeply meaningful gesture, often performed between sweethearts who shared a profound emotional bond. The significance of hair in medieval culture was multifaceted. Hair was often associated with beauty, vitality, and identity. Its color, length, and style could convey social status, marital status, or even religious devotion. To give a piece of one's hair was to give a piece of oneself, a literal fragment of their being. This made it a powerful and highly cherished token of love. Once exchanged, these precious locks of hair were rarely left unprotected. Instead, they were carefully preserved and often incorporated into other personal items, elevating them from mere strands to treasured keepsakes. One of the most common ways to preserve a lock of hair was within jewelry. Small lockets, often made of gold or silver, were designed specifically to hold a curled or braided piece of hair. These lockets could be worn around the neck, close to the heart, or pinned to clothing. Presence of the beloved's hair inside offered a constant, intimate connection. Rings were another popular item for incorporating hair. Hair rings often featured a small compartment, sometimes beneath a crystal or glass, where a delicate braid or coil of hair could be displayed. Similarly, brooches might have a small recessed area for a lock of hair, or the hair itself might be woven into intricate patterns beneath a protective layer. The craftsmanship for such pieces could be exquisite, demonstrating the high value placed on the hair they contain. Surviving examples of medieval jewelry in museum collections sometimes reveal these hidden compartments still containing fragile remnants of hair, offering a direct link to the emotional lives of people from centuries ago. Beyond jewelry, locks of hair could also be woven into more elaborate pieces. Delicate bracelets or necklaces might be crafted entirely from finely braided hair, sometimes interwoven with silk or metallic threads. These were incredibly intricate to create and required immense skill. The hair, in these instances, became the primary material for the piece of jewelry itself, making the connection to the beloved even more pronounced. Such items were truly unique. A wearable piece of the beloved that could be kept constantly close to the body. The act of cutting and giving a lock of hair was often part of a private, intimate moment. It was a gesture of trust and deep affection, as it involved giving a part of one's vulnerable self. For a sweetheart who might be separated from their beloved for long periods due to war, travel, or other circumstances, a lock of hair served as a tangible reminder of their connection, a comfort in absence, and a promise of reunion. While it is difficult to find direct written accounts explicitly detailing the exchange of hair as a love token for common people, the prevalence of hair in surviving jewelry. Royal and noble inventories sometimes mention such items, particularly as mementos of deceased loved ones. But the same sentiment would apply to living sweethearts. The emotional resonance of holding a piece of someone you loved, especially someone you were separated from, transcends social boundaries. The enduring nature of hair itself contributed to its appeal as a token. Unlike flowers that wilt or foods that perish, hair once preserved can last for centuries. This permanence mirrored the desired permanence of love, allowing the token to serve as a lasting testament to a bond that was meant to endure. The lock of hair, though seemingly small and simple, was a powerful symbol of intimate connection, a literal piece of the beloved that could be held, seen, and cherished, a tangible link to a profound and personal love. Number 5. Gloves. In the medieval world, gloves were far more than just practical hand coverings. They were significant accessories, imbued with social status, ritualistic meaning, and personal significance. As such, the exchange of gloves between sweethearts was a deeply symbolic act, carrying layers of meaning from protection and favor to a declaration of affection and ownership. Unlike some other tokens, gloves were often visible and could be worn publicly, serving as a subtle yet clear declaration of a romantic connection. Quality and style of gloves varied widely depending on the wearer's status. For the wealthy and noble, gloves were crafted from fine, soft leathers like deerskin or kidskin, often exquisitely embroidered with silk or metallic threads. Cuffs might be adorned with pearls, precious stones, or fur. These were luxury items, signaling wealth and refinement. For those of more modest means, gloves might be made from simpler leather or even sturdy cloth, but their symbolic value remained. One of the primary symbolic meanings of gloves was protection. A knight, for instance, might wear gloves as part of his armor, or while handling weapons. When a lady gave her knight a pair of gloves, particularly before a tournament or a journey, it could symbolize her wish for his protection and safety. It was a tangible token of her concern and affection. a way for her to participate in his endeavors by offering a personal charm or blessing. The gloves worn by him served as a constant reminder of her care and favor. Beyond protection, gloves were also tokens of favor and esteem. In courtly circles, a lady might bestow her glove upon a knight as a sign of her admiration or to challenge him to a deed of chivalry. This was not always a romantic gesture, but it could certainly be. If the knight was her sweetheart, receiving her glove was an immense honor, a public acknowledgement of their special connection. He might wear it prominently, perhaps tucked into his belt or helmet as a badge of his lady's favor. This public display communicated to others that he was her chosen champion, signaling his romantic allegiance. The intimacy of a glove as a token also cannot be overstated. Gloves, especially those made from fine materials, would mold to the wearer's hand, over time taking on their scent and shape. To give a glove that had been worn by the giver was to share a deeply personal item, something that had been in direct contact with their body. This made the exchange profoundly intimate, a physical link between two individuals. Receiving such a glove was akin to holding the beloved's hand, a comforting presence in their absence. Historical accounts and medieval literature provide glimpses of this practice. In various romances and chivalric tales, heroes often receive personal tokens from their ladies, and gloves are a recurring motif among these. For example, a knight embarking on a quest might be given a glove by his beloved to remind him of her love and devotion while he is away. Glove serves as a physical representation of her presence, a tangible connection across distances. The act of offering or receiving a glove could also be part of a formal betrothal or marriage ceremony. Though not always as the primary token, sometimes a pair of gloves might be exchanged as a prenuptial gift, symbolizing the couple's new union and their commitment to support and protect each other. The symbolism of two individual gloves forming a complete pair for two hands would have been well understood. Furthermore, gloves were often meticulously crafted, representing significant artistic and material value. A pair of finely embroidered gloves was a considerable gift, demonstrating the giver's wealth, taste, and the high regard in which they held the recipient. The intricate stitching, the use of luxurious threads, and the overall artistry of the glove would have made it a treasured possession cared for and preserved. In essence, medieval gloves, when exchanged between sweethearts, were far more than just articles of clothing. They were symbols of protection, favor, intimacy, and commitment. They were tangible reminders of a beloved's presence and affection, often worn publicly as a declaration of love and allegiance. The glove, a seemingly simple item, held a complex tapestry of meaning, woven into the very fabric of medieval romantic expression. Number 4. Embroidered pouches and purses. In the bustling markets, noble courts, and quiet homes of the medieval period, a small pouch or purse was an essential accessory. These were not just practical containers for coins or small personal items. When exchanged between sweethearts, they transformed into deeply personal tokens, often exquisitely embroidered with symbols and messages that spoke volumes of affection. Craft of embroidery was a highly esteemed skill, and a handmade decorated pouch was a testament to patience, artistry, and profound care. Medieval purses were often made of leather or cloth, typically fabric like silk, velvet, or linen. They came in various styles, from small drawstring bags carried at the belt to more elaborate, sometimes framed purses. The most significant feature, especially for a love token, was the embroidery that adorned. This needlework was not merely decorative. It was a language of its own, capable of conveying intricate messages. The embroidery on these pouches often featured a rich tapestry of symbolic motifs. Love knots, similar to those discussed earlier, were a common design, symbolizing unbreakable bonds and intertwined destinies. Hearts, sometimes pierced by arrows or adorned with crowns, were obvious declarations of affection. Animals with symbolic meanings also appeared. Doves for peace and fidelity, lions for courage and strength, or unicorns for purity and nobility. Heraldic devices, especially the crests or initial letters of the sweethearts, might be intertwined publicly, declaring their allegiance to each other. Flowers, each with its own symbolic meaning. Roses for love, lilies for purity, violets for faithfulness, added another layer of coded messages. The act of a lady meticulously embroidering a purse for her sweetheart was a profound gesture of devotion. It required hours, perhaps even weeks or months of painstaking work. Each stitch represented time, effort, and concentrated thought dedicated to the beloved. The choice of colors, threads, often expensive silk or gold thread, and specific motifs would be carefully considered to convey a particular message or sentiment. A knight might receive such a purse from his lady, carrying it at his belt as a visible sign of her favor and his commitment. Every time he reached for a coin or a small item within it, he would be reminded of her handiwork and her affection. These pouches were not just for the knights. A gentleman might commission or even personally embroider a purse for his lady. While less common for men to do the actual needlework, they might procure the finest materials or design the motifs themselves, reflecting their understanding of her taste and their shared symbolism. The gift of a purse often signified a wish for shared prosperity, or a desire for the lady to carry a piece of the giver with her always. Historical examples of these embroidered pouches can be found in museum collections, offering glimpses into this lost art. The pouch of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV from the 14th century, while perhaps not a direct love token, shows the intricate craftsmanship and symbolism applied to such items. More direct examples might come from inventories or literary descriptions where references to embroidered gifts given between lovers highlight their importance. The material value of these embroidered purses could be considerable, especially if they incorporated precious materials like pearls, gold thread, or elaborate clasps made of silver or even ivory. However, their emotional value far outstripped their monetary worth. They were tangible representations of time, skill, and affection, unique pieces crafted specifically for the beloved. Practicality of the purse also added to its appeal as a token. It was not merely an ornamental object, but something that could be used every day. This daily interaction with the gift ensured that the sweetheart was constantly reminded of the giver's love and thoughtfulness. It became a personal, intimate companion reflecting the bond between the two individuals. In essence, an embroidered pouch or purse was a canvas for affection, a wearable testament to a sweetheart's dedication and artistry. Through careful stitching and symbolic imagery, these items conveyed unspoken messages of love, loyalty, and commitment. They were personal, practical, and beautiful, embodying the medieval sweetheart's desire to give a piece of themselves, crafted with care, to the one they cherished. Number 3, girdles and belts. In the medieval wardrobe, a girdle or belt was far more than a simple accessory. To hold up trousers or cinch a tunic, it was a highly significant item, often laden with symbolism, and its exchange between sweethearts was a powerful gesture of intimacy, trust, and even a form of commitment. Girdles worn close to the body could signify status, virtue, and personal identity, making them potent love tokens. For women, a girdle was a distinct and very personal item. It was often worn around the waist or hips, sometimes intricately braided, woven, or adorned with precious metals, jewels, or enamel work. In some medieval traditions, a woman's girdle was symbolically linked to her purity or virginity. The act of untying the girdle could be a metaphor for the consummation of marriage. Therefore, for a woman to give her girdle to a man, particularly her sweetheart, was an act of profound trust and a deeply personal declaration of affection, perhaps even signaling an intent to be wed. It was a highly intimate gesture, akin to giving a key to her heart or a promise of her future. The materials used for girdles varied enormously, based on wealth and status. A noblewoman might possess a girdle made of fine silk, velvet, or embroidered linen, adorned with elaborate silver or gold, clasps, buckles, and decorative elements known as points or pendants that hung from the belt. These adornments could be intricate pieces of jewelry, themselves set with gemstones or carved with symbolic motifs. For those of more humble means, girdles might be made of plaited leather, wool, or simpler cloth, perhaps dyed in vibrant colors. Regardless of the material value, the symbolic significance of exchanging a girdle remained. For men, a belt was also a crucial accessory, holding weapons, pouches, and often signifying their status or profession. A knight's belt might carry his sword and dagger, making it an emblem of his chivalry and prowess. If a lady gave her sweetheart a belt, especially one she had perhaps helped to craft or adorn, it could signify her support for his endeavors, her trust in his strength, and her desire for his protection. It was a practical gift, made personal, serving as a constant reminder of her presence and affection in his daily life, whether at court, on a journey, or in battle. The exchange of girdles and belts is hinted at in medieval literature and historical accounts. In courtly romances, heroes often receive tokens from their ladies, and items of clothing worn close to the body, such as a girdle or a sleeve, are frequently mentioned. These tokens served not only as reminders of the lady's affection, but also as sources of inspiration and motivation for the knight in his valiant deed. For instance, in the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, while the girdle given to Gawain initially carries a different magical purpose, it ultimately becomes a symbol of his influence, illustrating the profound symbolic power that girdles could possess. Permanence of girdles and belts also made them ideal love tokens. Unlike fleeting flowers or consumed foods, a well-made belt or girdle was durable and could be worn for many years. This enduring quality mirrored the desired permanence of the love it represented. It was a lasting testament to a bond capable of being passed down or cherished for a lifetime. Furthermore, the act of wearing a given girdle or belt publicly was a subtle but clear declaration. It signaled to others that the wearer was favored by someone special, hinting at a romantic connection without explicit words. It was a silent display of affection, a visible sign of commitment and shared identity. In essence, girdles and belts, deeply personal items of medieval attire, served as profound love tokens. Their exchange between sweethearts conveyed intimacy, trust, and a desire for lasting union. Whether signifying a woman's purity, a man's strength, or simply a deep personal connection, these tangible objects worn close to the body became powerful symbols of enduring affection in the medieval world. They highlight how even practical items could be transformed into eloquent expressions of love. Number 2. Brooches and pins. Among the glittering array of medieval jewelry, brooches and pins stood out as exceptionally versatile and popular love tokens. These small, often exquisite pieces were not just functional fasteners for clothing. They were miniature works of art, capable of conveying complex messages of affection, loyalty, and commitment. Worn visibly on cloaks, tunics, or hats, a brooch given by a sweetheart served as a constant public declaration of a romantic bond. Medieval brooches came in an astonishing variety of shapes, sizes, and materials, reflecting the status and wealth of both the giver and receiver. For the elite, brooches were crafted from precious metals like gold and silver, often adorned with sparkling gemstones, such as rubies, sapphires, emeralds, or pearls. Enameling, a delicate technique of fusing colored glass to metal, was also widely used to create vibrant, intricate designs. For those of more modest means, brooches might be made of bronze, pewter, jet, or even bone. But their symbolic power remained strong. The designs themselves were often imbued with specific romantic symbolism. Hearts, whether simple or elaborately crowned or pierced by arrows, were an obvious and enduring motif. For love, clasped hands known as feed, faith, rings, or brooches. Symbolized loyalty, trust, and fidelity between two individuals. Initials of the sweethearts, sometimes intertwined, were a popular choice, a personal cipher for their connection. Animals with romantic connotations such as doves, for peace and love, swans, for fidelity, or lions, for courage and nobility, also appeared frequently. Floral motifs like roses were chosen for their beauty and symbolic meaning related to love and passion. One common type of love brooch was the posy brooch, similar to the posy ring. These brooches often featured a short, intimate inscription, a posy, engraved on their surface, sometimes in Latin, French, or English. Phrases like "Mon cœur veille," "You have my heart," "Amour me tient," "Love holds me," "Tout pour vous," "All for you," or "Amour le cœur," "My heart to you," were common. These inscriptions were direct and unambiguous declarations of affection, turning the brooch into a personalized love letter. The act of giving a brooch was often a significant gesture. It was a tangible gift, representing a material investment, but, more importantly, a personal sentiment. A sweetheart would choose or commission a brooch with care, selecting designs and materials that conveyed their particular feelings. For the recipient, wearing the brooch was a public acknowledgement of the gift and the relationship. It allowed them to carry a piece of their beloved with them at all times, a constant reminder of their bond. Brooches were frequently exchanged during courtly love rituals, where a lady might bestow her favor upon a knight by giving him a personal token. The knight would then proudly wear this brooch, often on his cloak or hat, as a visible sign of her affection and his allegiance to her. This public display was part of the unspoken language of courtly love, signaling to others the special connection between the two individuals. It might also serve as a reminder of his vows, or a source of inspiration during his travels or battles. Archaeological finds and museum collections provide numerous examples of medieval love brooches. For instance, the British Museum houses various medieval brooches with heart shapes, clasped hands, and intimate inscriptions dating from the 13th to the 15th centuries. These artifacts offered direct evidence of the prevalence and artistry of such tokens. Surviving medieval inventories and wills also sometimes list personal jewelry, including brooches, highlighting their value and sentimental importance. The enduring nature of metals and gemstones meant that these brooches could last for centuries, becoming treasured heirlooms. They served as lasting testaments to relationships, surviving long after the original sweethearts had passed. Craftsmanship involved in creating these pieces, the intricate carving, the delicate enameling, the precise setting of stones, underscored the value placed on the sentiments they embodied. In essence, medieval brooches and pins were not merely decorative accessories. They were powerful and eloquent love tokens. Through their symbolic designs, precious materials, and intimate inscriptions, they allowed sweethearts to express their affection, loyalty, and commitment in a visible and enduring way. They were miniature declarations of love worn close to the heart, or prominently displayed, embodying the intricate and often public language of medieval romance. Number 1. Rings. Among all the tokens exchanged by medieval sweethearts, the ring stands as arguably the most enduring and universally recognized symbol of love, commitment, and eternity. From humble iron bands to glittering gold masterpieces adorned with gems, rings held profound significance, acting as promises, declarations, and tangible connections between lovers throughout the medieval period. Their circular shape, with no beginning and no end, perfectly encapsulated the desired permanence of love. The practice of exchanging rings for betrothal, a formal agreement to marry, became increasingly common and legally binding during the Middle Ages. Unlike modern engagements, a medieval betrothal, or spousal, was often considered as legally weighty as marriage itself, sometimes even more so. Especially by the Church, the ring served as physical proof of this solemn promise. Giving a ring signified a binding commitment, a public declaration of intent to wed. The ring was often placed on the fourth finger of the left hand, following a belief that a vein, the vena amoris, or vein of love, ran directly from that finger to the heart. One of the most popular types of love rings was the posy ring, from the French poésie, meaning poetry. These were rings usually made of gold or silver, inscribed with a short personal verse or motto on the outside or, more commonly, on the inside of the band. The inscriptions were intimate and often served as a private message between the sweethearts. Phrases like "Amor vincit omnia," "Love conquers all," "Mon cœur est à vous," "My heart is yours," "Let love abide," or "I choose you as I take you," were common. The hidden nature of the inscription on the inside of the band made the message even more personal, known only to the wearer and the giver. These rings were exchanged as tokens of love, fidelity, and constancy, not only for betrothal, but also as general expressions of affection. Another significant type was the gemel ring, from the Latin gemellus, meaning twin. These rings consisted of 2 or 3 interlocked hoops that could be joined to form a single complete ring. Each sweetheart would wear one of the separate hoops, and when they were joined often during a betrothal or marriage ceremony, they formed a unified whole, symbolizing the union of 2 individuals into one. Some gemel rings featured clasped hands or a heart on the outer design, further reinforcing their symbolic meaning of unity and affection. Craftsmanship required for these rings was intricate, making them highly prized possessions. Materials for medieval rings varied greatly. While gold was preferred for its beauty and durability, silver was also common, especially for posy rings. Less valuable rings might be made of copper alloys. Gemstones are also incorporated, though often for their perceived magical or symbolic properties as much as for their sparkle. A ruby might symbolize passion, a sapphire truth, and a diamond invincibility. A ring set with a single precious gem was an opulent and highly valued token. Historical records and archaeological finds attest to the widespread use of rings as love tokens. The Victoria and Albert Museum in London and the British Museum both house extensive collections of medieval rings, promoting the diversity of styles and inscriptions. Royal and noble inventories often list rings among their most prized possessions, frequently noting that they were gifts exchanged between spouses or lovers. For instance, medieval wills sometimes meticulously describe rings bequeathed to family members, noting their sentimental value and who originally gave them. The ritual of giving a ring was significant. It was often presented with solemnity, perhaps in front of witnesses, signifying a public commitment. The wearing of the ring, particularly a betrothal ring, signaled to the world that the wearer was promised to another, warding off unwanted advances and affirming their relationship's status. Beyond formal betrothals, rings were also exchanged as simple tokens of affection, friendship, or remembrance. A ring might be given to someone going on a long journey, serving as a tangible reminder of the beloved in their absence. The weight of the metal, the coolness of the stone, and the intimacy of its placement on the finger ensured a constant physical connection to the giver. The enduring nature of rings, crafted from durable materials, meant they could last for generations, becoming cherished family heirlooms. This physical longevity mirrored the hope for an eternal bond between the sweethearts. They were not merely decorative objects, but powerful conduits of emotion, commitment, and identity. The ring, in its simple circular form, held the universe of meaning for medieval sweethearts, making it the quintessential expression of enduring love in an age long past.